Well, for more on that symposium, we are joined by the Public Works Deputy Minister, Mr. Sihle Zikalala. DM, a good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Perhaps just from your perspective, I think it would be great to hear, a bit more detail about the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium of South Africa. I believe the first that we see being put together of the 7th administration.
No, it is not the first. It is the first under the 7th administration.
Correct, yes.
We've had about 3 under the 6th administration. These started, I believe, in 2021, and we had last year another one where we launched for the first time an infrastructure book, and that was detailing the project of the financial year which were going to be implemented in that financial year. And this edition of the symposium, it's where we are going to account about the previous financial year, how far we've gone, and then detail the next phase as how we have planned to go forward on the implementation of infrastructure development in South Africa.
I think perhaps we could actually get into that update, and we'll get into Potsdam and certainly what was seen today. But you did have, of course, the finance minister in the budget talking about a 1 trillion rand investment that's been earmarked for infrastructure. And you can talk to us about the sort of allocations that we're expecting to see there, implemented projects, those that still are in the pipelines, and particularly the really big ones, and what we're expecting to see out of this 1 trillion announced by the finance minister.
We welcome the budget that was presented by Minister Kotongwane, Minister of Finance. He announced more than 1 trillion that will go to infrastructure. It will focus on the following areas or sectors. The main sector will be energy, as we address load shedding, but as we build more capacity and distribution. The second area will be water and sanitation. The third area will be logistics and roads, as we strive to ensure that we remove or we move cargo or goods from road to rail. That will be the critical areas that we're going to focus on. There are other areas where we are focusing or 2 fundamental areas. The first is to augment the work that is done by the special economic zones where we are industrializing. And the third is where we look on social infrastructure, such as housing, schools, where we are needed to really engage on that. But we know that is the mandate of the provincial departments, but some have appealed to us to assist them to fast track or to front load their projects.
Yeah, I know that you've also got in attendance at this symposium, and I just want to repeat, the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium of South Africa. You've got infrastructure ministers from other countries, Uganda, Ghana, the Kingdom of Swaziland or Eswatini, Lesotho, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Namibia, Zambia, and Equatorial Guinea. I mean, talk to me about those interactions, lessons that we're sharing with them. And I wonder if we talk about some of these strengths and ideas that we share on the continent, we're also able to talk about where we do things wrong and where we have had infrastructure challenges that we take from other countries, what those have sounded like.
Yes, you are quite correct. We learn from Africa and the world. We are part of Africa. We engage with Africans, nations, not as big sisters and brothers, but as colleagues, Africans, and we know that our future is intertwined with the future of Africa as a whole. If I may start on the issue you are raising, we've learned a lot. For instance, if you talk about Egypt, they've got a sovereign wealth fund which specialize in supporting their infrastructure development. That is one lesson that as South Africa we're grappling with. On how we can create these kind of funding mechanisms to support development in South Africa. We have countries that are bothering with us, such as Lesotho, Eswatini. We also have Namibia, they are attending, and other countries from Africa. We welcome them. We know that our development is also dependent on them. For instance, if you talk about water in South Africa, for a greater part of Gauteng, we get water from Lesotho through the Lesotho Highland water scheme. So we know that South Africa will not emerge on its own without the region, the SADC region, but without also the continent. And that's why we've, for the second time, invited African ministers to be here with us. They were here last year, and they are still here this year.
Yeah. In those conversations, DM, how do you tackle the discussion around what we're terming here in South Africa, the extortion mafia, a big problem for the infrastructure sector, concerns around access to some of those opportunities by communities and smaller businesses? It's a tough balancing act. Some would argue that you have the need for transformative procurement, but also you have to ensure that there is no crime in the midst of that. When you speak to some of these countries and you present how South Africa is tackling that, what does that sound like?
It sounds like we must have a common approach because they have held different approaches from us and experiences, different experiences. For instance, in Namibia, they will tell you that they have not had this situation because from the onset, they unbundled monopolies. They said big companies must work with small companies. And they had a clear framework on that, which I think it's a good lesson that we must draw. Balancing transformation is very important. And we have countries like Swaziland where they say emerging companies are also given space, but big businesses also is given space, and they are working mutually, supporting each other. We are going to be taking to cabinet soon the social facilitation strategy, which will be talking to how are we going to deal with issues of disruption and the construction, the so-called construction mafias. But this is a social facilitation strategy. It entails everything. It entails supporting small businesses in local communities, ensure local employment, and then it also ensures that big companies are able to be cushioned from extortion that we've seen happening in the previous years. So we will be unveiling this strategy in the next few months after the cabinet have adopted.
All right. DM, we do appreciate your time and we look forward to getting all the updates as well. Thank you so much for availing yourself as you continue with that symposium. Sihle Zikalala there, Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, talking to us about just some of the things that have come up in that 2025 Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium of South Africa. Stay with us. When we come back on Newsfeed PM, the late edition, we'll take a look at the stories which dominated headlines over the past week. Do stay with us.